So for this workshop, as we showed at the council meeting on February 5th, we've got 3 items for discussion tonight. We're going to discuss some golf cart rules, communications, and then go over what we have so far for the March 4th City Council agenda. So jumping into our first item on golf carts. So this was brought up at the November council meeting last year, so a couple months ago. Councilmember Jensen requested the topic to discuss golf cart rules and regulations, and at that time the council decided to discuss it at a later workshop. So that's what we are here today to do. In the packet, we just provided you with some statistics of the last, what have we got here, 7 years of golf cart sales. Each year they have steadily gone up. In 2023, we issued 681 golf cart permits. Based off of our growth, it is very likely we could hit 700 in 2024. Attached to the packet, we just not exactly sure which direction we're going to go with and what was wanted to be discussed, so we just attached the current golf cart permit application for your reference, the golf cart rules and regulations that we give out every time we issue a license, as well as the Nisswa golf cart flyer that was provided at the November meeting as well. So with that, I guess I'll start by just handing over to Councilman Jensen. If there's anything you specifically wanted to address.
I had gotten a copy of the Nisswa golf cart rules from a resident, and they're a little bit more stringent. The discussion isn't about eliminating golf carts. We're a resort area. They're going to be here. It's about enforcement and revisiting our rules. Are they appropriate? What does the council think? What is the other members' opinions? It would have been nice to have Breezy's and Nisswa side by side. I also think that the new putt-putt golf course is going to be primarily used by golf carts per the developer is the mode of transportation. One of the members of planning and zoning voiced a concern at the time because you can potentially have golf carts sitting out on County Road 11 going to make a left-hand turn. Unfortunately, Crow Wing County is not going to do anything about it at this point. But the reason for calling it is I just wanted the input of my peers and Chief Sandell on Nisswa's rules, looking at our rules. Is there anything we can do? The police department will be getting a new side-by-side, and there will be patrols in the city, golf cart enforcement and disc golf course. They'll be out in the community. As we all know, it gets pretty busy here, summertime. So really, the intention was to get feedback from Chief Sandell and the fellow council members looking at Nisswa's compared to ours, and look to see if there's changes, if any, that need to be made. Golf carts will continue to grow. I have a side-by-side ATV. I use that to go around the city. It's governed by different rules than the golf carts are. So again, it's not about eliminating golf carts. They're here to stay, and as they should. It's a resort community, but just revisiting rules.
Steve, was there anything in particular within the rules that you were?
Well, I think looking at driving, make sure comparing our rules to Nisswa's, that on the county roads, the golf carts are on the shoulder. Also driving through the city, I believe they have it in here that you should let cars through. I end up driving, behind a lot of golf carts on the city roads. Looking at that. Speeds, golf carts now are approaching 30 miles an hour. That's pretty fast. Last year, my wife and I were almost broadsided by what appeared to be an underage driver driving the golf cart. Luckily, there wasn't a collision. But I do think with a lot of these roads that are very narrow, I mean, it is what it is, we're not going to change that, that we just need to kind of go through our rules and determine if they're appropriate. I thought Nisswa would have been a good comparison, as they have a couple things that we don't.
We didn't get, and I'm just looking, like a side-by-side comparison in our current, like, ordinance versus Nisswa's, though, in preparation for this, right? If are you wanting to go through the actual ordinance and
Not
compare?
the ordinance,
'Cause I think
just
we
the
have
rules and
flyer.
regulations. Rules and regulations.
Because I think most of these things, I mean, I don't disagree with that are in that, like, flyer that's in the packet. Where did it go?
I think part of it is going to be Nisswa has, operator must have a valid driver's license or may be 15 years of age with a valid learner permit. I think that's one difference. I think we cover no one may sit in a driver's lap while a golf cart is in motion. And not having ours up in front of us, I'm not sure. I think we do speak to that, but things like this, I think we just need to look at. But one of the main things is what is the age of somebody that's allowed to drive them. ATVs are governed by the state, but children underage have to have a adult with them driving an ATV, and they can cross the highways. So, but this is just focused on golf carts.
Minnesota does actually regulate golf carts in 169.045 for special vehicle use on roadway. I remember this because many years ago, I was approached because we actually did not allow golf carts to drive at night. It was strictly prohibited. And the question was, why not follow the state of Minnesota where it says, if it's equipped with headlights and taillights, why can we not? And that was brought up number of years ago to, I believe, the chief, and so we investigated the Minnesota statute, and that was definitely something that we could, again, we can be more restrictive, so we were in that case, and so we opened it up saying, okay, if you do have factory headlights and taillights, now you can drive between sunset and sunrise. And that was amended that golf carts are prohibited between sunset and sunrise unless equipped with original equipment, headlights, taillights, and rear-facing brake lights. So that was amended. Probably 4 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, the county was allowing UTVs, class two, thank you, on shoulders of county highways. And so our question was, what is the difference when you look at a UTV versus a golf cart? And you look at it, besides speed, which you can go much faster in the UTV, we petitioned for the county to allow us to have golf carts on the shoulder, the right shoulder, on county roads for 1139. So that was amended that we could do that. One of the requirements was we had to report back of how many permits we issued, and I believe on how many accidents or citations that we have. I'm looking at the chief, hoping that he can guide me and say yes or no. But they did put a requirement that it was only good for 1 year, and we could not do a longer than 1 year license, which is why we have a 1 year license. I believe 169.045, and I would probably yield to chief, or we'd have to look through it, but you are probably correct in the statement of our golf carts are prohibited with drivers younger than 15 years old. Could be modified to say between 15 and 16 must have a valid permit,
Yes.
learner's permit. I believe that could be definitely amended, and also saying at 16 or older with a valid driver's license.
Yep.
That could be amended to be a little bit more clarification in that point.
Yeah, I agreed.
Going through on our regulations, we do strictly prohibit on Bushman Road, which that's being addressed.
obvious reasons.
There's obvious reasons from that. We don't want them on city parks and trails during inclement weather. That's just, should be common sense. And then from towing trailers, which I don't see that happening in the community, but we don't want trailers. I don't know why that rule is there. So I agree with you that the drivers younger than 15, that could be modified to kind of match what Nisswa has in
I
there.
think also about the drivers for Nisswa's, not having people sitting in the driver's lap.
Yep.
And that is not in ours. No standing while in the golf cart, motion, hanging off, hanging on the golf cart. I see that a lot.
Those could definitely be applied to it. A lot would think that common sense would prevail, but by calling it out and calling attention to it never is a bad idea in some
Well,
cases.
and I think it's appropriate to have Chief Sandell speak, but this isn't about out writing tickets. This is about education. It's not, I don't think the goal should be or is, and I'm not going to speak for Chief Sandell, of the police department to be out writing tickets. That's not the objective. It's to educate and have some enforcement if appropriate. That doesn't mean it will be in the form of a citation. And I think our police department is very good at community policing. I think they do a good job, and they're out in the community talking to residents, getting feedback, and where it's needed, enforcement or, education, I guess I'd prefer to call it, is used, and I think that's appropriate.
So yes, that is correct. We attempt to educate the public. If it's a reckless act, reckless or careless, we will issue citations right away. We attempt to educate people as far as yielding to motor vehicles. Our current ordinance does limit the number of occupants to the seating in that cart. So if it's a two-person cart, it should be 2 people in there. If it's a 4-person cart, 4. So ours is limited to seating available. It doesn't specifically state no seating in the driver's lap for young children. So if you wanted to add that, you could. We have not had many issues over the years, and golf carts have been in Breezy ever since I have been in Breezy, which is a long time. We've had a few crashes as of recent, and that was more during COVID when the kids weren't in school and stuff picked up. There's a lot of kids running around golf carts. That has once again dropped back off now that we've gotten back into the flow of things. And the 2 crashes we had that resulted in injury here in the last couple of years were both children that were licensed drivers. So they were old enough to have a driver's license. It's up to you to determine the age. I do think there is some merit in saying that someone that has not been through driver's education yet probably should before they're driving a motor vehicle on the city roads, because if you're required to obey the traffic laws but you have not been educated yet, some parents and children are going to be very diligent and will know the rules and regulations, and some won't. So that is up to you to decide.
Well, one other point, and I think people miss the point of whether you're driving a boat, a golf cart, side-by-side ATV. If you do get a DWI, the same penalties apply. You can lose your license. You have to, whatever the court, lose your privileges to drive, whatever they determine. But, to Brian's point, I think it depends on where you live in the city. There's obviously, inside the main gate, there's a lot of golf carts, I think Ranchette. But again, I think really we just need to tweak a couple of the rules. And I do think that someone should have to have a valid learner's permit.
My name's Bob Gustecki. I live in Castlewood Court, and I do have a permit for a golf cart. The problem I have is I know like Bushman is not supposed to be used, and I know it's been used before. I'll take the bumpy road, but we're only 1 block away from trying to get onto the city roads. I mean, is it a type of thing where it's flat in that area? We don't drive at night. We don't have any lights for the cart or anything else. But it's like with taking my grandkids to the playground or anything. Is it okay for me to just go 1 block on there? I thought I'm just going to ask for it straight out. I've lived here since, we purchased it in 2011, and we've had the golf cart now probably 2 years or so, but I've only had a permit once.
It seems like that would be a good point of clarification. I mean, I can't imagine we would say, no, you can't, like, you're stuck there, like, you can't
Well, it
zip
has to
around
be
to
very
like,
granular, but I think it also brings to light why we'll be voting on improving Bushman Road shortly. I mean, there's no shoulders, it's unsafe. I know where you are, that part of it, you're not in the hills, in the blind side, but again, it needs to call it out
I
specifically in the
think
rules.
from what I understand, the history of the prohibition on Bushman had nothing to do with, we don't want golf carts on Bushman because we don't like them. It's all about been a safety concern because there is no shoulder and we've talked about the sightline issues. Chief, have you ever,
That is correct. No, so, I don't want to speak on behalf of the council, but it's one of those things like, if they were to tell you, yeah, sure, that's okay. Now everyone else in your neighborhood sees you doing it. Well, if you can do it, we can do it, and there goes the stipulation with the safety in there. So for you, I would say my recommendation, the snowmobile trail runs right there.
I've taken that before, and it's just bumpy,
Yeah,
you know?
it's pretty
But
short
it's-
distance to
It's
Harvest
a type
Road.
of thing, the sight line there is open, you know? I mean, like I say, I've lived here, what, coming on 13 years, and I've never had a problem going in or out. I mean, I've only had the permit 1 year, but it's a type of thing where I look at it like there has to be something for that, and like what you're saying, even when the new road is coming in, okay, now what's the restrictions?
Well, the shoulders, there'll be shoulders, the sight lines. I mean, the hills, I don't think there's anybody in the city that's ever traveled on Bushman Road that's gonna say it's safe. I mean,
well, I think when they made that rule, though, I don't think they were thinking like, oh, somebody who's going like 10 feet and turning off onto like Harvest Road or whatever, you know, I think the intent was like, please do not travel from, you know,
County Road 11 over.
7 to Ranchette.
Yes.
Just, you know, I mean,
It kind of goes in line too, because the county's rule, and we've had discussions on the four-way stop here, the county's rule, when you're traveling County Road 11, coming east at the gates, technically the rule says law says that you need to be on the furthest right-hand shoulder of the road. Well, that appears and looks like you're in the turn lane to go right, but even going straight, legally, you should be in the furthest right-hand lane.
Right,
We've discussed that ideally, I don't know if I want to say this, but
Yeah, go ahead.
Chief would prefer that a golf cart, if moving forward and straight, would be in the straight lane, which is the actual lane of traffic. It gives more visual for any cross traffic that you are indeed going straight, whereas if you're in the furthest right, as the county rules state, people would assume you're turning right.
right.
And so it goes into, there's a rule, but then there's, what's the saying? There's the intent of the law versus the practice of the law.
The only thing is, with your rules, it says you have to use hand signals.
Yes.
And so a person is supposed to be using hand signals, which I do, even if no one's around, just to make sure.
Yep.
And that, so, you know, in there, I understand where you're getting, I used to drive cycles. And, you know, the big bikes, and you'd be going down that road, and you just have to make sure where you're at on that piece of tar. But, you know, it's just a type of thing where how can I say, I'm not against people not being on Bushman, but I'm just 1 block away from hitting the city streets.
I think like a lot of other things, I mean, part of what this comes down to is people just have to exercise due care and reasonable discretion. And to me, I think as long as you're doing that, it probably shouldn't be an issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would agree. Like if an officer saw you, pulled you over, and you explained, I live here going to this road, they'd be like,
yeah, continue on.
have a nice day.
Personally, I'd like to see the ordinance changed if that was your intent,
Okay?
because our officers are trying to follow your ordinances as you set forth, and if it says no Bushman Road, obviously they have some discretion in there depending on, but it's better if it's in the ordinance. If there's even some contingency for people that reside in Castlewood, we don't want people on the hills by Ranchette.
I agree. It's a type of thing, though, that you could put something in there if you have to go 1 block on Bushman, that it's allowable as long as there's clear view.
Being, I believe that for the most part, it's Castlewood Drive. We could certainly amend it saying no travel on Bushman except for between Castlewood Drive and Northwoods Lane.
That'd be the one towards 11.
To then,
Yes.
yeah,
And
you,
that's the one that we'd go on.
Yep.
It's just that if I have family up here, and let's say, my son-in-law wants to take the kids to the park and using the back roads, I don't want all of a sudden, we did something wrong, and I'll definitely tell them, all you can do is be on that 1 block if that's okay. I would greatly appreciate it. It just makes it a lot more simpler, and like you say, Steve, when they do the new road, which I'm in full agreement with, is then we just have to make sure we're,
Yeah, and that's the object, and I think if we clearly state it so the officers are clear, I mean, it's common sense, I mean, there is sight lines, but the rest of that road is just too dangerous.
I agree with you wholeheartedly, and I can understand where that comes into play, but this is just a little bit, and I don't want to, how can I say? I like to make sure the kids are following the rules because they learn that, and then they will become better citizens for it. So, thank you very much.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
So what I'm hearing is you have to have, between 15 and 16 years old to drive it, you need a valid learner's permit. And then also, we do not have anything stating no one may sit in the driver's lap while the golf cart is in motion. And we also, I don't think we have anything on standing.
I mean, some of this stuff, I guess, do you put it in a regulation? I mean, some of this stuff doesn't seem like appropriate for a regulation to put in there. Like, it's just something that people should know better not to do.
Well, I'm here to tell you, I see a large amount of golf cart traffic, and I see open bottles. I see infants in people's lap. I see kids that have a golf cart with 9 people on it. I see it daily.
I'm not saying you don't. I'm just saying when you're drafting laws, there's things you should put in them, and there's things that don't make sense to put in them.
Clarification. For the learner's permit, do you want to follow state law for like a driver's license? If so, then you need to have a licensed adult driver with you.
That's what NISWA says.
Yeah, so if you want the learner's permit, there should be an adult driver in the vehicle with them.
Well, it says accompanying a valid learner's permit and accompanied by a person 18 years or older in the front seat.
Which is the same rule as a Minnesota driver's license.
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah. So Mike Scott, Lakeshore Drive. So, but are we just changing rules to change them? Because I agree with you. I see a lot of kids, 9, 10 of them hanging off of these things, but all of that's currently against the ordinance. So changing the ordinance isn't going to prevent that.
No, I think it's just clarifying, and this is with the police department getting the side-by-side ATV, it's gonna have air conditioning, it'll have the lights. They've never had that, so there is going to be an officer in the summers patrolling the areas. I would assume, I'm not gonna speak for Brian, but Lakeshore Drive's another one. I live on Shoreview Lane.
But they drive down Lakeshore Drive in their cop cars right now. So whether or not they're in a $60,000 side-by-side or a
But
cop
there's
car,
gonna
it's
be
the same
more
enforcement.
targeting on enforcement, which really comes down to education. The police department's goal is not to go out and write tickets.
And I believe me, as a father that's had minor children driving golf carts for many years, Brian and his, I get it, huh? But Brian and his team, I like it that they actually have common sense.
Exactly.
They're not out just picking on people.
No, they're
I just don't
not.
know if wasting the time of changing an ordinance that now a 15-year-old can't drive it. I mean, my 15-year-old was on a jet ski doing 75 legally at the age of 13.
Yep, I
It's all
had
about
two
how you
sons
teach
as
'em.
well.
Yeah, it's all about how you teach them and the right and wrong way to drive a golf cart. So I'm not
And
a
I-
fan of laws, period, but just changing them, I don't know if it's beneficial for
Yeah.
it.
No, I think that's a good point. And then enforcement, I think we always talk about enforcement, right? Like, how do you enforce it? Like, I don't know, maybe Chief, you can weigh in on this, but like somebody who's 15 years old, I mean, then you have to check, you have to make sure there was somebody who was 18. Like, I don't know how you're gonna be able to tell. Like, I can't tell somebody's 14 or 15 or
And that's
unless they're
good.
doing something wrong and they get pulled over because of it.
Good point, and I've clarified this with some of the others, but, so everybody hears this. We cannot stop someone just because they look young. So we stop people for violations of city ordinances, laws, whatever. I can't stop somebody because they look young unless it's very obvious, you know. So there are times where it's obvious. I was at fault once and I stopped a young gal who I thought was obviously underage and she actually had a driver's license. So when you get older, it's much more difficult to judge how old young people are. So generally speaking, if they're behaving and doing the right thing, even if Councilman Jensen thinks it's an underage kid driving by, we may not stop them because we need a reason to stop them. And just looking young is not a reason to stop them.
I would agree, though. I'm not in favor of changing laws just to change laws, especially when there isn't really an enforcement for it, so.
And I haven't heard, other than like you seeing issues, like Chief Sandell hasn't said there's been issues. I mean,
But I don't think there's been an officer dedicated on weekends specifically to parks and golf carts and other enforcement.
and yet still they can't just pull people over because they want to.
No, they can't. That is correct.
Yeah.
I agree.
Now, we have had reports of children messing around several times in the past, and it's about being at the right place at the right time. If we have one or two officers on patrol, by the time they get to that area, the children can be gone. We have spoken to quite a few about driving conduct and parents and what have you, but we will never reach everyone.
And I'm curious how they enforce the speed limit in the regulation in Nisswa, because golf carts don't have speedometers. Mine doesn't. I don't know if any of them do. Maybe the fancy ones might, but.
The newer ones do. They can go almost 30.
But they have to have
But do they have a
seatbelts.
speedometer so you know how fast you're going?
They have to have seatbelts after.
I mean, I have seatbelts in mine just for safety reasons for my kids.
Just
but-
one point of clarification, if it goes over 20 miles an hour, it's not a golf cart.
Oh.
That's a rule. So if,
Okay. Well,
all
that's
golf carts have to be
interesting.
less than 20 miles an hour. Is it 25 or 20? I think it's 20.
Ask him.
I'm being educated myself right now.
Yeah, there is a requirement on it.
Oh.
So ATVs can go really fast. Golf carts can only go up to, I think it's 20 or 25 at the most.
Okay.
That was one of
So,
the
yeah,
things that we,
interesting.
when we wrote the ordinance originally, that was one of the things that, okay, should we put in a speed limit on it? Well,
Yeah.
it's moot because if it's a golf cart, it can't go over a certain speed.
Right, okay.
That's
If
not
you
true
clock
anymore,
somebody-
though.
If you clock somebody at 30, it's not a golf cart, and they can't drive.
And I don't, like Councilman Jensen just said, I have no idea if the current golf carts are still held to that restriction. I don't know.
I believe they are.
I don't see that is that in the ordinance?
No, I think it's in the state,
So you're saying the state law?
state law.
So the
Yeah.
Minnesota doesn't
Yeah,
actually
it
classify a golf cart.
defines a golf cart as 20 miles an hour.
So if they make them that go 30, it's probably technically not a golf cart then, for city law, for city ordinance purposes,
Or
if we're.
somebody that's jacked
So I've researched a little bit. So when you want to buy something, you got to research, right? Golf carts are 20 miles per hour. Yes, if you do some modifications, new tires, new wheels, you might get 21, maybe 22 out of it.
Not on the newer ones. My neighbors own them. They can go 29 miles an hour. You can buy them. That's not modified. That's purchased.
So that would be what's called a low-speed vehicle, which can go up to 35 miles per hour within the state of Minnesota. So that, I'm assuming, would be equipped with headlights, taillights from the factory, along with seat belts. And so that's a Minnesota state regulated vehicle class.
I guess I have not seen the ones with seat belts. I see a lot of them. A lot of them now have lift kits, but they can definitely go over 20 miles an hour. A golf cart that only went 20 miles an hour is old technology. It hasn't been that way for many years. I mean, if the council doesn't want to do anything, that's fine.
Well, I always have the question, and I have it in this instance too, why do we have the ordinance? I mean, if we think about when the ordinance was adopted, what was behind it being adopted? What was going on? Why did the city put the ordinance in place in the first hand? I mean, I think in part that helps you to at least start to understand, given all the changes over time that occur. And naturally, the lines between what's a golf cart and what's something other than a golf cart are being blurred quite a
Oh,
bit.
absolutely.
Because, yeah, I too am not necessarily a fan of just having ordinances for the sake of having ordinances. If we're accomplishing something, if we're specifically addressing an issue or trying to prevent, whatever from happening in the community, that's one thing. But
So
yeah.
that, would your opinion be that when somebody gets a golf cart permit, they give them the state statute and say, this is what we go by?
I think in a lot of cases, the less that government intervenes and has a say in what private citizens do, the better. But I realize that that's probably just me. And yeah, perhaps, I mean, I don't know what would be wrong with an approach in that way. Somebody buys a golf cart and,
I mean, I have no problem with that. Go by this.
If I may, Minnesota State Statute 169.045 does state regarding special vehicle use on roadway, subdivision 1 does state, the governing body of any county, home rule, charter, or statutory city or town may by ordinance authorize the operation of motorized golf carts, all-terrain vehicles, utility task vehicles, or mini trucks on designated roadways or portions thereof under its jurisdiction. Authorization to operate a motorized golf cart, all-terrain vehicle, utility task vehicle, or mini truck is by permit only. So that's why we have it. The statute actually says to allow them on your roads, you must issue permits. Now, to Councilmember Scott, what rules beyond what's in the state statute we issue, that's up to the city.
So
But we do have to issue permits for it.
The ordinance, what that does for our officers, it gives them the ability to enforce the ordinance. So we can write a city ordinance citation for $50. It's a pretty minimal fine if people are repeatedly disobeying the ordinance. If it goes to the state, then it's a lot more difficult. It's going to be, if we can cite them, it's going to be much more expensive. We have more tools available to us with the ordinance in place for enforcement purposes.
So what is the,
We don't write very, very few city ordinance violations for golf carts. But if we didn't have that ordinance, we couldn't write any.
so what's the consensus? Use the state ordinance and do away with our rules?
There is no state ordinance.
I think having what we have in place has been good. Again, the other issue with the permit would be that we collect and validate insurance, right? Again, if you go get your vehicle a new tab or license plate, you need that proof of insurance. Same issue with City Hall. We require proof of insurance at the time that a permit is issued. We track of how many golf carts we have. We compare that against how many citations and or accidents that we've had. I think our past record is minimal. We had COVID time that we did see that uptick. I know that was a large concern because there was a lot more children out during the daytimes and during school time. We've seen that reduction. Not saying it's gone, it's still apparent, but a lot of times it's about the parent in a lot of regards. It's about parenting and doing the right thing for your children and allowing the children telling them, no, you can't. Or being an adult yourself and knowing that and that's why I think it's good to still have our golf cart rules and regulations, because we clearly call out the operator is required to play Minnesota traffic laws, and you can be arrested by DWI. We clearly call that out, because this is not just go have fun. This is still city streets.
So do we need to add anything referencing the state statute?
We state that the operator is required
It's in there once.
to obey all Minnesota traffic laws
Yep.
and use hand signals. So, I mean, we do call it out that it's there, and like I say, a few things were amended over the course of the time of the county roads and the use of headlights and taillights. And other than that, I think this has been pretty status quo. So at this point, I'd be fine with leaving it as is.
Same.
Yeah, that's fine.
I am too. My only question is, we did have this gentleman come up and ask about the Bushman Road situation. Is there any desire to like amend it just for that specific item? Or do we just say, keep doing what you've been doing for the last, to get where you need to go? I mean, without saying.
I would, just because there has not been instances, I'd say leave it as is, and
I would encourage the council to say we encourage you to use the snowmobile path.
encourage, strongly encourage.
Use your judgment.
Be safe.
And we may have to revisit it once Bushman Road is updated.
Well, and once Bushman Road has done that actual verbiage of prohibited,
That could be eliminated.
Actually
'cause you've got
eliminated
the shoulders and.
Well, I would
That
like
would
to
be the
see what
goal.
it looks like when it's done, but yes. Yep, but I'm okay with not changing it either. Leave it as it is.
I'm just gonna say, I disagree with it, okay? It's not that much, it's flat land area. And the reason why is just that they have to obey the rules. I agree with having the rules and everything and making people pay and that they have to read those. But I'm looking at, it's one block. What do you do in Bushman if you have to cross the road in a golf cart and you have a zigzag? You can't go.
It's a valid point, that's why.
I guess under the current ordinance as is written, yeah, you wouldn't be able to,
Cross Bushman.
no, because technically you'd be riding on Bushman.
So would anybody oppose to saying on Bushman Road with the exception of between Castlewood Court and Northwoods Lane / Harvest Road?
Do you want to stop it there or just go all the way to County Road 11? Because they're allowed to be on County Road 11.
Or you could say something along the lines of, if you live on a dead-end road and your only outlet is a road to get to a connector road. I mean, otherwise,
Yes.
there's probably other.
I would say that too.
There's probably other dead-end roads where if that's your only way out of your driveway, like you should be able to take that path. So instead of leaving it to Bushman and just saying Bushman, just in the ordinance say, if that's your only route out, you can take that route to get to the nearest exit. That's what I would do instead of limiting it to just Bushman.
Because you do have roads north of Bushman that they're dead ends
Right.
also.
Yeah, that's
Yep.
what I would say.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to be so specific.
But
as-
Bushman's the only one we limit
Right.
Right.
golf carts on.
Right, but they have to cross Bushman
Yeah.
to get to
So that's what I'm
this-
saying, so then you just
So
need
just
to
leave
address
it broad, because
Bushman.
you never know when another road is gonna come up that, we may put that on. I would just leave it as, if you're on a dead-end road and that is your only way out, that is your path that you can take. That's what I would in whatever form, I guess,
Yeah.
you would say that. But I think that you should be allowed to do that, right? And not have it be something where it is against ordinance, because again, it doesn't really make sense if that's your only route out.
Now, the only thing that you might look at is how far can they go on Bushman? All I'm looking is going one block. And you don't want to get where someone is coming on a dead-end road and they have to go half a mile.
Just to the dead-end roads, Robin Hood Lane is a dead-end road. And in order to get to Breezy from Robin Hood Lane, you gotta go up and around all those hills to make a right on Ranchette. And doing so, if you met a couple of dump trucks anywhere in that area, you have a major problem, which is why they were restricted to start with. That would be a very bad area to have golf carts.
Well, I think that, again, there's a personal responsibility, and you make decisions based on whatever risk you want to take. So if you want to take your golf cart out of there to drive on Bushman, however far you need to drive to get to another road, that is at you're taking a risk on your own. I don't think we need to necessarily say that,
I mean,
Do we remove the prohibited from Bushman Road and put an asterisk and say strongly discourage
Yeah.
use of Bushman, use at your own safety?
yeah, I mean, that's what I think that should happen. I'm not a fan of rules in the sense of,
I can understand where you're talking, Robin Hood Lane. And I can understand there's a lot of curves and everything there.
Well, I'm
But,
playing devil's advocate, but if you rely on everyone's common sense, from my experiences, that doesn't always work so
no.
well.
Well,
You
can you
could
say,
do a
like-
valid driver's license. You could say only people over the age of 18 or something along that can drive on Bushman, because then at that point you are looking at someone who is an adult doing that instead of a child driving on Bushman. But people are going to drive on it no matter what, right? So at the end of the day,
to like be a little bit more specific and say east of Ranchette, like.
yeah,
so
you
it's-
could, yeah.
Can't say not west of Ranchette. I mean, that may solve,
you might
Most of the
just want to
issues, I
say you can
think.
go a block.
yeah.
I mean, if
A block
you
on
allow golf
Bushman,
carts on Bushman
and that
with
would-
gravel, with dump trucks hauling gravel, that
I
is.
will say, in the current
That's
scenario,
insane.
one of the things, if golf carts are to be removed, the prohibition, like people don't, at this point right now, people aren't expecting golf carts on Bushman. And as Councilman Jensen said, if we open that floodgate, there will be golf carts on Bushman. So they're gonna take a scenario where there currently aren't golf carts, they're not expected to be there, to now they are there.
I think there should
But on the
be,
dead-end road, I mean, I think that they should be able to take their golf cart out of their road to get to the next road.
I think until,
Public safety issue. If you look at the majority of laws we have in place, it's for public safety. Speed limits, this, that, whatever. If you put golf carts on the west side of Ranchette Drive, it would not surprise me if we had fatalities because of that.
Well, and we can decide not to do it on the west side. I'm just saying, like, in general, if there's a dead-end road, that's where I stand on it.
Since this is,
can we have like, maybe David, you can think of like a good way, like, is it a block? Is it 2 blocks? Like, and east of Ranchette? Where we would,
I guess I'd have to talk with the chief about it, the County Road 11 to Castlewood kind of makes sense only because that section is flat.
Correct.
Right at Castlewood is where you start to go up the hill, the green scene, so.
Right.
Castlewood on that east side would be, I don't know if you.
So
I don't
maybe
know if you
it's-
agree with this, chief, probably would be the stop.
Yes,
so
I
is
would-
it east of Green Scene on Bushman? Like,
Castlewood to 11 if you're gonna allow it because of the sightlines.
And I wouldn't go beyond that.
But I personally would say, try to limit it to a block or some sort of thing so you don't get caught where people are going all the way to 11.
yeah, I don't think people need to go all the way to
Yeah.
11. They can take the back
The
roads
only
to get
thought
to
about that was
11.
just that people can be on 11.
I think if you do that, you're encouraging more people on 11. And I'll admit, if I were to travel up north, I would take Harvest Road and take the back roads.
Yeah, you don't want to be on Bushman very
Right,
long.
no.
So
I
that's where I say, I think Bushman Road is prohibited except for the intersection of Castlewood Court to Harvest Lane? What is that?
Or what about
Harvest
the
Road
opposite
/
side? What
Northwoods
about the
Lane.
north side of Bushman?
But I'm saying you have Bushman to travel between Castlewood, and that covers the north side as well.
Yeah.
There are no
Bushman?
there are no other streets west except for
Yeah,
you talk to
'cause
Robin Hood.
There's the one that's a
north-south
dead
road
end,
is Harvest
and then
Road?
there's the one that goes out to the lake.
Darner Lane
Yeah.
and Northwoods Lane.
Okay, so we would have to clarify the north.
And again, we're talking for the next 1 to 2 years potentially with
Right.
the
Yeah.
potential
Right.
Bushman.
And I greatly appreciate it. It's just that I don't want
You want to do the right
try,
thing.
do the right thing, put it that way, and have my kids and my in-laws do the right thing,
One
so.
more point, as far as making it from Harvest to 11, if you have people coming off West Street, East Street, trying to get into town, personally, I prefer them to jump on Bushman, go that short distance to Harvest, instead of forcing them to stay on County 11.
So you're talking further up.
Sure, because
Yep.
if they could use Bushman to access Harvest, it keeps them off the county roads.
I would agree with that then. Castlewood to County Road 11 is open for travel. This would encourage the east-west, as Chief has alluded, to encourage them to get onto Bushman to then take the back roads to go further south versus staying on County Road 11.
Sorry, I'm not following.
I don't know the sight lines to Harvest Road. I'm not familiar with that road.
It's flat.
Pretty flat, yeah. I mean, there's no sit lane issues there.
It's flat, but
From
you
Harvest.
don't really want, I just that like corner by Mr. Bushman's house there, I mean, I don't think I'd be running into golf carts there connecting onto 11. I just wouldn't have to go around, you gotta go around them. It's not a wide road right now.
So are you suggesting that you'd rather keep people on County Road 11 that are going from east-west to the center of town?
So like the people coming off of over by
Daniel, can you pull up the
Aussie.
map?
Yeah,
It's easier to look at on a map.
yeah.
Gone, yeah.
Maps
Sorry,
that,
but
yeah.
really not following where we're talking about.
Right there.
So
So people
do the-
coming from like West Street, East Street, go back the
Oh,
other
back.
direction, Daniel, right
Stop.
there. So like West Street, East Street, what Councilman Maroney is saying, if they're coming down there and Chief Sandell is, have them hook onto Bushman and then go down Harvest versus staying on 11.
I mean, you think it's safer for them to be on Bushman than 11? I don't,
That
but,
corner that you're referring to, I understand, but it's people slowing to a stop, people getting up to speed, they should be able to see the golf cart traffic. I think it's safer than highway speeds on County Road 11 for extended period.
Because it's 55 all the way until Ski Chalet, correct, Chief? Is it-
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's where it stopped, where it changes. Couldn't remember if it's Ski Chalet or further up.
No, I believe in taking the back roads. I do. It's a lot safer. People aren't going as fast and everything.
and just giving them the option of doing that, is that what you're saying? Like, just let them choose? If they stay on 11, they can,
Well,
obviously.
and
like-
this is my opinion, but the people coming from Castlewood Court are likely going to take Harvest because that makes more sense
Right.
going up to 11 unless they're going
Yeah.
north for some reason.
Right,
But the residents up on east and west, and there's quite a few up by the lake there, it gives them the option to get off 11 on Bushman. I just think, personally, I think that's a safer route just because of speeds.
Yeah. I know myself, I'd never tell my kids or my in-laws to ever drive on 11 except just to cross it to go to the park. My kids, my grandkids, I have 6 of them that are, the oldest one will be 9 this week. So that's where, we like to use the park and that, and they enjoy that. And it just,
I think that seems reasonable.
that's all.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I
thank you.
appreciate it.
So what I'm hearing for recap is that we'll leave the rules and regulations as written with the amendment of on Bushman Road with the exception of from Castlewood Court to County Road 11.
Yep. So we'll bring that change.
Because it needs to be it needs to be approved at a council.
Gonna have to change, I think it actually, section 70, where'd it go? I got rid of it. The city ordinance specifically says Bushman, so we'll have to change that.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, if there's no other further discussion on golf carts, we'll move to our second item tonight, which would be the communications. Obviously, this has been an ongoing discussion over the last year and a half, really, I think even before that, since especially I got here, about ways to improve the communications. I know Councilmember Jensen just wanted to, I think, further continue that discussion. So, Councilmember Jensen, I don't know if there's anything specific you wanted to have the council to consider tonight, or just have just a general discussion?
Well, I think, first and foremost, Daniel's done an excellent job with communication. I mean, it's a work in progress. I don't think we're there yet, but I think we've, through the website, put in place the tools, and by having the mailings to residents. I mean, the fact of the matter is there are people that don't use social media, don't have smartphones, want it by U.S. Postal Service. That's what the mailings are. I think also, to me, it's more about content. I get an unbelievable amount of feedback, and I think it's appropriate to have all the information on the projects. But if a resident goes to our webpage and you look at, say, City Hall, I think there's, I need to go there, 8 PDFs. I mean, there's a lot of information trying to figure out what it is you need to read and where you get it, I think is part of the problem. What I would like to see is for every major project that we have, and this is going to have to be a living document, and it would take up staff resources, but a project summary documentation, a document solely for just a summary, as condensed as we can get, so that a resident does not have to go through. Daniel, if you can scroll down to where the PDFs are, that's a lot of information. And even as council members, it can be confusing, but residents, want to know, but I think sometimes with the amount of documentation that's out on the webpage, and I don't think it's wrong. I mean, if people choose to look at it, I think it's valid. But I also think that residents looking for a summary, then they can ask educated questions, contact staff, but at the end of the day, it's up to residents too. There has to be initiative.
So if I can ask Councilman Jensen, Daniel, if you want to scroll up,
Yeah, we do have a summary.
that's kind of what this has become, is a rolling
But I mean,
summary.
everything like the
that's gone-
financing, that doesn't cover financing, like your
Well,
document.
that's what I'm getting, I guess my question is when you look at a project that's been going on for almost 2 years now, if you go all the way back to when this started, and I just described multiple times, how you condense that into like 500 words that's still informational. There's so much that's happened. Honestly, for me, this is condensed. And that's where I guess our question is like, what specifically, like, because I feel like it's, the financing. Well, the financing was one part of the discussion. And so, and that's in there. Those memos are available. We taught in there, it refers to the financing. So I guess what we're trying to get at is how, we are trying to condense it. And I think that's the kind of.
Well, hence why I wanted it on the
Yeah.
agenda, because communication is incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
I think the city has taken, we're headed in the right direction, but I get feedback, constant feedback from residents that can't find the information, starting with, looking at the bar where you have community departments, business, how do I went to, the community for the projects, and it's under departments, but I think with the amount of projects and the amount of money that is proposed being spent, that we should take the how do I bar, put that under community, and under the departments, take the city projects and put it on the main page.
So you're looking just
agree
for
with-
ease of access.
Ease of access and trying to, so residents can easily, without having to spend 4 or 5 hours, have a document. And you can't condense everything, but you can hit financing. You can hit, here's 3 options that were proposed for City Hall, or 4 or 5, whatever. But something that they could more easily, at a high level, lead them to be able to ask informed questions or find the information that they need. That's just my opinion.
I do agree that the bars at the top are not intuitive as to which categories are underneath it. I still haven't memorized what's underneath them. I don't know how it was determined that those are the names and what's underneath it, but we may have to revisit that, because I do think it is hard to know what's under each category.
Just so you're aware how those are pretty much the commonplace names. If you go to other cities' websites, it's all like that use Civic Plus, like Brainerd and others. That's kind of their template. So that's
Yeah.
that's where they came from.
No, and I mean, that's just a small thing, but because I think we've come leaps and bounds from where we were with our old website. We didn't have a Facebook page, we didn't have a Nextdoor, we didn't have a newsletter that we do like electronically, and we're talking about mailing one, and we didn't have this board out here that now displays like what meetings are coming up. I mean, we've done a lot of things. And
Absolutely.
yeah, we still maybe aren't there yet. We do have, there's stuff that gets posted in the newspaper. I mean, there's other avenues besides electronic communication that things get communicated, so. And I think you guys
I'm
have
just
done a
going
good job,
off,
so.
I know Daniel has, and I stated as such. But I think residents are frustrated thinking they're not able to find the information, and I don't know what the answer is. That's why I put it on the agenda for the council to discuss. I agree 100%. We're so far ahead of where we were, but when I keep getting the same questions over and over, how do we overcome that? Is there anything we can do?
And there is that other feature that we'll be adding at one point that didn't we talk about that? Organizes stuff better on the website, that displays it better? Didn't we have a?
I'm not sure what you're referring to.
Yeah, can you elaborate on that? What?
Like, we were showing that app that,
Are you talking about Questica?
Oh, that was for the budgeting,
That's for
would be on there.
budgeting.
yeah, but that's going to be.
It's another form of
Some parts
communication,
of that
yes.
will be external, so you can look at numbers that way. I mean, so there are other things.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to get at. I mean, there are other ways we're going to try to
When it
get.
comes to communications, there's an
information out.
element of you can do so much. And so I guess there's that idea of also like over communication. And that's, I think, the balance we're trying to play is giving people, giving people the much information they need, but not overburden them with communication. And that's just not even just a local government problem. It's an everyone problem in 2024 with all our technology is how do I give people the right amount of information? And it's kind of always that balance of someone says, I don't have enough, and another person says it's too much. And we're trying, I think we're trying. And we appreciate the feedback, and the more specific, the better. Yeah.
As we've all said, we've taken leaps and bounds from the communications, and, I think we're far surpassing anything. I look back at what is Crow Wing County doing? I don't get a letter from them with what's going on. I don't get anything from the state. I rely on my own initiative to go investigate or news, and that's what we have to go off of. I think we have a good synopsis of what's going on that project page. I agree we could probably put a new header if we can do, a specific project page on the top or call it out a little bit easier. The only other thing that I could potentially see is on the documents that we have there, the PDFs, is a short synopsis of what that includes. A quick three-sentence paragraph of what is the feasibility study.
So that I don't think we can do on that module, Daniel, can we? Like put a paragraph under the link? Some of this, but I would say also some of this is just that the website does not do it.
Sure.
Okay, so the way it's set up right now, no. I wouldn't be able to do that in the way that it's currently set up. I might be able to do that, but I cannot promise you I'll be able to.
Yeah.
That's going to take a little bit of time figuring out if I can even do that at all. I haven't thought about doing that.
And too, things like, I think the Breezy Brief newsletter, now that it's available to residents, is awesome. I mean, but we need to get that message out, because when Daniel did that report for council, people aren't signing up for subscriptions. And I think that is the key, how do we get the message out? Because we were privy to the Breezy Brief. Now for residents, you've got 3 pages of every department in this city, what's going on, and Daniel did a phenomenal job with it. But we need to get the message out so that the taxpayers and full-time residents of this city read it. It's a great document, and it is condensed.
And Daniel and I have talked about that extensively. And Daniel can get into more of the subscriptions and all that. And I think one of the reasons that might be is because pretty much everything we put out to the subscribers, We're also putting on the city's Facebook page, and we're putting on Nextdoor, which between, I think we have over almost 1,500 followers on Facebook, and we have a reach of almost 800 households or accounts
Yeah,
on Nextdoor.
so Facebook right now is at 1488, and Nextdoor is currently sitting at 832. So, I mean, those are our primary avenues for communication. That's where pretty much everybody looks at our stuff. Nextdoor especially is extremely active. Facebook is a little less active. It's more of a viewing platform than it is an interactivity one. Yeah, that's kind of the way it looks right now between those two. And I honestly, there's a little bit of probably bleed over between Facebook and Nextdoor. Some people are signed up on both, but for the most part, in my experience, there's not a lot. People who usually use Nextdoor are using it because they don't want to use Facebook. And people who use Facebook don't really use other platforms generally. So I'm relatively comfortable, give or take maybe 100, saying that we've got over 2,000 people looking at our stuff between Facebook and Nextdoor on a regular basis.
And as we said, told the council when we signed up for we got your authorization to sign up for Nextdoor. Unlike Facebook, where people have to like opt in, they have to go and follow us. With Facebook, anyone who is signed up that's in what they call a neighborhood within our corporate boundaries, they automatically get our stuff because we're listed as, what is it? What's the title? Government agency?
Yeah, we're a government agency. We're the primary government agency in this area, and we're the only one.
So they'd actually have to opt
there's
out
no competition.
of seeing our stuff on Nextdoor. Nextdoor.
Yeah, you don't know.
So.
Jessica Scott on Lakeshore Drive. I know that everyone's very busy, yourselves included, with careers and families. And a really great way to communicate with myself and even this one who's not very technologically savvy is just an email. So my church, for instance, what's happening at LCC this week? It's a great reminder. Kids don't have confirmation. It's Ash Wednesday. Whoops, great, awesome. Same type of thing. I think that would be a great way. And if you have links that we can connect to with topics that you're seeing and hearing, like earlier tonight, that people have questions about and a lot of passion behind some of that even, those would be great avenues to also engage as council members with your community. So.
Is this where you sign up, you're saying?
Yeah, you can.
Right here.
This feature's available now. You can get an email.
And if anyone were to call, if anyone has trouble signing up, you can always call City Hall. Daniel is always more than willing to, he'll actually sign you up while you're on the phone and just take care of it for you. One thing we always, I think it's been brought up before was, well, we have lists from other things we've done. Can we just upload all those emails? Our concern with that always is not wanting to do that without people's consent. The biggest reason is because that's a public record. So if a company wanted to call us and say, puts in a public record request and said, we want all those emails, we have to give it. So that's our concern, why we don't just want to upload any email we ever get, because then there's gonna be a lot of people who say, I didn't ask for this. So that's where it's kind of we want you to opt in, because then you are opting into this versus that's being forced upon you.
So you're saying you do news and announcements on a regular weekly or monthly basis that goes out through this?
Yeah, so pretty much everything that we when it comes to like agendas or like the meeting notice for this, we pretty much what Daniel, I should say with Daniel, because he's our main communications guru. When he puts it on Nextdoor and Facebook, it's also generally going through this. Is there any reason we don't send through this?
The only things I don't send out through here generally are I didn't send the one that we posted to Facebook and Nextdoor earlier today because it was the fire truck stuff and it's going to be a bunch of pictures. That'll be weird if it goes to somebody's phone as a text. It'll freak out.
And that's less of a communication thing, and it's hey, we wanted to thank the Pequot Lakes Fire District for coming to our last meeting and bringing the ladder truck.
But any of the meeting notices, the public notice stuff, the agendas and stuff, any of the regular posts I do on Facebook or Nextdoor.
The newsletter would go out through that too, right?
Yep, Daniel did that,
Yep.
So I think, just from a guy that reads the newspaper every week still, I mean, I only found out about the meeting earlier from the electronic board.
Mm-hmm.
So is there a reason why, like everything you sign up for a free dinner at Applebee's, you're giving them your email. is there a reason why our golf cart permits, you just can't ask for that and they start getting them? Like through MailChimp or something, or? I mean, yeah, I don't know much about it.
So that's something we are looking at. We're slowly trying to get on to the techie world. So that's something that's actually, I think we're going to be looking at and talking to the council about in the next couple of months, is we call it ERP, Enterprise Resource, what is it, Enterprise?
Enterprise Resource Planning System.
Thank you. It's a software, and then through that, we might be able to do more of electronic stuff. So.
You're doing it through Facebook, and I don't have Facebook.
No, but that software allows us to allow us to do better of sending reminders about, hey, this is up.
Could I just real quick? So what you're asking for is not something that's currently actually within the city's capabilities, because we don't actually have a software to be able to do that. All of our golf cart permits are on paper, and you can't actually even pay with a credit card. It's cash or check. So even if I wouldn't actually have the capability to even do that, because we just don't have the ability in the office to physically do that. We don't have a program to put it into or any way to do that. So you can't sign up for like a golf cart or something online. The stuff that generally goes out on the subscription service is my communications to residents, just chatting essentially. I mean, it's not chatting, but it's
I
chatting.
understand that completely,
Yeah.
and I agree. What I'm saying though is a way to get people's email addresses automatically is putting them on there, and then through MailChimp, we send out a mass email.
Yeah.
And that's what I was saying to earlier of, we don't want to just anytime someone gives us an email for something, automatically stick it in there. Because there are some people that might not want that out there.
So there's
The issue is, like, communication is,
Facebook.
Yeah.
we've heard the issue is too little communication, David.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd love to hear the day that, we are over communicating. So trying to be of assistance in that
Yeah.
sense of, here's other ways maybe we can look at it, that's all.
Yeah.
And that's very much appreciated because communication is incredibly difficult. And again, Daniel's done a phenomenal job, but we just have to keep working at it and get the message out to the residents. And this is not unique to this city or any city. It's,
Just quickly, on like the supporting documents thing, like if you couldn't like do it underneath it or something, you could create a whole separate PDF that just said like, here's a description of all these attachments below, and maybe that would be a little bit of work, but if you just did it on an ongoing basis for new
Table of
projects, it would be
contents.
pretty simple, and you could almost link to them if you wanted to, but even if it was just like separate PDF says, here's what these documents are, yeah, you could do it
Just-
that way. It'd be easier.
Yeah, I see you guys trying to do a lot of good things. I see that. The thing what I am concerned about, there is a number of people out there that are not computer savvy, different things like that. We have to figure out what's the best way to get to them, because you don't, like you talk about next door or whatever, there's a lot of garbage that goes on there. And I disagree with what's going on with a lot of that. I look at it like, okay, if you're gonna, how can I say, if you say we have a problem, then I'll ask you, how do you think we should fix it? Okay? But that's what you can do, like with your mailing, if you're gonna mail out something, you might just ask people, is there certain people that would like to always have mailings because maybe they don't, that you could just send out a certain batch to, so it isn't as costly to you in certain things when a new meeting's coming up or anything else on something. But I would definitely ask people in that first mailing, how do you think we can communicate better? And keep it positive and do it that way. It's a type of thing where I know sometimes it's hard for people to keep it positive, but you get a lot better results that way, But,
agreed.
no, I appreciate all the things that you guys are trying to do and everything, so, nothing there, but just, it did get into, how can I say, a firestorm with all the city hall and everything else because people didn't feel they were getting information. And I know you're trying to do something to rectify that, so thank you.
Yeah, no,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Yeah.
I like Rebecca's idea. I think anything we can do, and we, you know, we're not gonna get away from mailings. I mean, some people like mailings. I too like to read the newspaper. I don't like to read it online. I can read it online. I like a newspaper. But I think the mailings, you know, when the council initially looked at it, we thought, well, we have the digital tools to do it. Well, it turned out, you know, we needed to do a mailing, and it's appropriate. My fear is too, we have a large population that's seasonal. What is it, 42%?
Somewhere there.
41, I mean, it's a high percentage. We need to make sure that they're informed too, because they do pay taxes as well. And I think everybody on the council, I mean, we're all committed, and as is staff. But resident feedback helps, and we've had very little resident feedback specifically on communications. The feedback we get is, oh, council doesn't know what the hell they're doing, the information isn't there. Well, that's not necessarily the case, but it means we need to take a look at it on an ongoing basis and do what we can to improve it based on resident feedback.
Right, but in that same tone, Steve, is when someone says, you're not giving me communications, ask them, what do you need?
Yeah, I agree.
What would satisfy you? And then see if you can do it or not.
I mean, surveys are easy enough to do, but yeah, anything we can do to what a residents,
Yeah,
taxpayers want.
but don't let someone just complain about a problem.
No,
That's
I
what I'm
agree,
trying to-
but we,
I know you're not doing that,
Yeah.
but what I'm saying is, you go that next step and you get them to comment on something.
absolutely, you know, we just need to get residents' feedback, and I think I mean, the newsletter will be, I think, well received. I
Yeah.
really do.
So, thank you.
Okay.
I think part of what we have to consider, and I've spoken to this before, when we think about communication and how we engage the community, is really identifying sort of the elephant in the room. And that is, this city really does not have a very strong history or past of engaging the community. And so I completely agree with what you're saying, Steve. We want to get more people involved. We want to hear from more people. Well, it's going to take intentionality, and it's going to require time in order for that to occur.
I agree 100%.
Because you can't just sort of ignore the past 20, 30 years or whatever amount of history when people do come forward and are told to be quiet, or your opinion or thoughts don't otherwise matter, and think that people are going to have the warm and fuzzies to come forward and offer up their input and provide feedback, right? So I want to just put that out there. This is not something that is going to be addressed or resolved or figured out, certainly overnight. And I'm a firm believer in whatever we can do within reason, the better. Because we all know that we get communication. Our lives are informed every day by multiple sources. And so I think for us as a council to not be entertaining what are in fact those multiple sources that people are getting their information from, and how can we be a part of that, right? How can we proactively have a role in getting information out to people or asking for their engagement is really, I think, where we're going to start to make a change.
So are you proposing, again, surveys, or what is your methods that, I mean, I agree with you.
I look at 200 plus resources that we have right in the community at Eagleview. And I wonder, in part, why not unleash a couple of elementary kids on the city's website and say, what would you change? You design it. You know, kids these days with technology in particular, and just how they get information and how they make sense of things, I think it'd probably amaze all of us. Tapping into the mindset and the frame of reference of our young kids, how it probably could go to a level of increased success, and how people are currently struggling in finding information on the website, as an example. And I say that in all sincerity. Sometimes I think we have a way as adults, as people that probably aren't as astute with technology and the like our young kids are, of just complicating things more than what we're actually doing by way of further clarification or making things easier. Because that's what I'm hearing you say. How do we make the city website as a method of communication more user-friendly?
You know?
And that's always going to be a work in progress.
Yeah, oh, agreed. I mean, it will be continual for many years, but I think we've made good improvements, but at the end of the day, the majority of things for most people are gonna come back to the website. I mean, you have to have somewhere that has all the information, but the challenge is to make sure people who don't use social media or don't want to use their computer, that we can at least get them informed of projects so they can contact City Hall and start asking questions, or a council member for that matter. I mean, it's a work in progress. So, again, that's why I requested this, because I think it's an important topic and will be an ongoing topic for many years, no matter who's sitting in these chairs.
I think if we can get to a place of recognizing what is minimally needed by way of communication, or what is minimally required under state law, and then saying, what can we do in addition to that? What can we do to enhance that, is the place that I would like to see us get to, as far as communications and our approach to having a communication plan and engaging the community. I don't know that that's necessarily been part of conversations before. Yes, it adds to a level of work and commitment overall when you start doing that, but to me, I don't think just holding to what is minimally expected or required today is sufficient, is going to work. Because you're always going to have people coming forward and saying, well, why didn't you do this? How come you didn't think about that? So I guess what was the goal tonight?
So what would you propose, though, to do different? I mean, from what we're doing, okay, I mean, the challenge is, what can we do better or change to get there?
Where did we end up with the city newsletter?
Oh, that's going out and,
Yeah, you voted to do a mailing quarterly, and we do the e-newsletter at the beginning of every month now, so.
And that e-newsletter is posted online as well.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
Or on Facebook.
Yep,
I mean, that's a very informative document for those that haven't looked at it, I think.
And we pushed it through the subscription list.
Yeah.
So we're maybe at a place with some of the changes that are occurring, newsletter going out, yet another way for people to get information or to know when or why they would want to contact City Hall, to kind of sit back and see, what are we hearing? How are people reacting to this? Is it being received well? And to me, it's probably always a process where, you plan, do, check, and you adjust. So we're planning, we're building out this communications policy, we're doing differently by way of the newsletter, and now we sit back, check, kind of understand where things are at, how that is serving people in the community better, and we continue to revisit it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's
If I
ongoing.
can, and I think what I think we'd appreciate is if you do hear from someone, if someone reaches out to you about it, we ask that you please tell them to come to us, so we can also have that conversation of, hey, so what is it what is it where you're looking for? Maybe what was the, here, if it's something that's on the website, here's where it is. Maybe understand where the disconnect of being able to find that was. I think part of what we're getting is we aren't hearing it. You all are hearing it, but people aren't coming into City Hall, calling myself, calling Daniel, calling Deb, and going, I can't find this thing. How do I get this piece of information? We're not getting that. And so I think what we would appreciate from you all is that the officials, as you're hearing from the public, telling them, the staff wants to hear this. So please, here's staff's call City Hall, go into City Hall. They want to have this, because we do want to have this conversation with people to help understand. We don't want to act like we're kicking against the goads, because we're really not. We're just trying to figure out what it is, what do we have the capability to do, if it's something we don't have the capability to do, is there something else we need to do? So we're actively always trying to figure out ways to improve, but we also need to hear from the people too of what it was. If it wasn't communicated, okay, what wasn't communicated? How could it have been communicated to you? What was the miscommunication or misunderstanding on the website? Things like that. So we would like to hear that directly from the people.
Well, for instance, I mean, I received an email from a resident with multiple questions, and what I did is went through all our documents and provided the links. I think people, I mean, it can be overwhelming, you know, the amount of documentation and the length of the presentations to some people. And I think part of it's time. A lot of people have young kids, there's activities, businesses, work, you know, hence I think, you know, Rebecca's idea would kind of split the difference that, you know, people can look at a document and say, okay, this is what each one of these, you know, is. But I think your point is well taken, David. I mean, 100% agree. If you don't receive feedback, how do you know, how can you fix it?
And I think we've talked about doing this, but in the newsletter, it's a great opportunity to try to get people to subscribe to the website and remind them how to do that. And especially in the mailer, once it goes out to get to those people, if they, I don't know, they might not want to use electronic, but for those people that do, that's another way to say, sign up. Or also get that feedback, like that was a good point about like, how are we doing? What can we do better? Like just.
But I also like the idea of if there's residents that want to opt out of a newsletter, you know?
Yeah.
But I mean, for now, we had to go with the tax base. I mean,
Yeah.
I think as a council.
But we did talk about
agreed.
revisiting that, yeah.
Revisiting that, you know, to save some money, and if people truly are just gonna file it in the circular file.
Yeah.
You know, but a lot of people will use it, and again, to Brad's point, it's a work in progress and revisit it.
But see, just that, Steve, though, you could, you know, attach to most anything you do with communication, and I don't think we should use that as any basis to determine what we should or shouldn't do. Just because some people choose to throw the newsletter mailed to them in the trash, that's their decision. No different than if we're sending information out by an email and somebody hits the delete button, right? The whole, to me, goal of all of this is, are we connecting information to people in multiple ways that people are currently using so that we can, at the end of the day, say, we're trying to cover as many bases as possible within reason, but there's a limit to what pragmatically we can do,
Yeah, I agree.
right?
And I think one of the things on the Breezy Brief, in the future edition, if we can, you know, indicate those links of how to sign up. Because if I got it in an email and I forwarded that PDF to somebody or I downloaded it, if I forward it to somebody, they should be able to open that PDF and see a link that says, oh, here's how I can get new future ones. So almost doing a little advertisement at the bottom or middle or somewhere to kind of break it up and suggest, here's how you can get this directly delivered to you. And that's one thing I think, and yes, I go back to the statement that was made, not everybody's online, not everybody's tech savvy, but at least put in a QR code when we do the mailer, QR code with a direct link that people can go and say, if you like this and more, sign up here, and have those direct links to that sign up. I think that will just entice people more, that more can be delivered to you via digital email.
Yes.
And it'll get more traction.
One of the local business owners that I talked to about communication said his clients like texting. Well, we have the ability, you know, to do the texting, and to your point, you know, Brad's, yeah, put the QR codes in there and people can get email, they can get text. You know, I think of all these meetings, you got 50, 60 people in here. The majority have a smartphone, but everybody's different. Some people like email, some people like texting. The information's there, but we do, you know, we do have it through these subscriptions. And it's, you know, purely resident choice. Hopefully people, the word will get out, but, you know, it's just an ongoing process. So that's really all I had. Appreciate the feedback of the council.
Okay, so the last thing we had is just to go over the review of the March 4th City Council agenda as it stands today. One thing we heard at the January meeting was the council wanted to have a little more of kind of play a role in the setting of the agenda and kind of at least seeing what's going to be on the agenda ahead of time. We started that a little bit with the agenda forecast issue, always with agenda forecast, it being a month out. Sometimes there's things we don't know. A lot happens during the month. So by doing it at the workshops, it's closer to the meeting. So at this point, we're a week out from the packet going out. So this, I believe this agenda is probably 95% done. Maybe something comes up between now and then. And so really what the intent here is not necessarily to discuss each item on the agenda, because actually, obviously that's what we're going to be doing on March 4th, but maybe if you have a question why something's on there, if you want to add something, if you want to have discussion about maybe pushing an item, that's kind of what this time is for. So for March, obviously the first five items, call to order, roll call, pledge, that doesn't change. Under two presentations, we got two items currently. The first, the proclamation declaring March as Food Share Month in the city of Breezy Point. It came out as a request from Councilman Jensen, especially that is in Minnesota. So the state of Minnesota has declared March as Food Share Month, and they've done that for many years. So this would be a proclamation also declaring that it's Food Share Month in the city of Breezy Point. Again, we did that food drive in December that was, I think, quite successful, I'd say, especially for our first one. The thought we had discussed is maybe doing another one in March as well in City Hall. This kind of same thing. We'll just have boxes out. We'll get it put on the sign and stuff people can drop off, and we'll periodically deliver the goods to the Pequot Lakes area food shelf. So that's what that is. First Children's Finance, that was a request from Mayor Zierden. I don't know, ma'am, if you want to go into more detail of what their presentation is, but I think pretty much to discuss childcare in Minnesota, I guess that would be the summary.
No, they do. So they do free financial modeling for whether it's a city or a private business on whether or not having childcare is financially feasible. And they also will explain how the difference between Child Care Center and the pod model, so people can understand that it's not subsidized it's basically information so people don't get the wrong idea about childcare. And they're actually most likely going to be presenting to the city of Nisswa and to a private place in Pequot. So it's just information, so people get the right, accurate information and just know exactly what the options are.
Item public interest, as we've had last few months, City Hall. So as was discussed in February, and then in January's workshop, February's council meeting, at that on March 4th, the design team, we will be back with. We'll have obviously the previous design for the new building that was presented, as well as a new building with the request of what would additional amenities of a gymnasium and a fitness center look like on a new build, and then also a remodel expansion that was discussed. So we have gone and I think we have a great design put together. With Seth now is actually they're working on the getting external renderings for what the remodel and expansion could look like. So we'll be presenting those options for the council to consider. Under consent, basic just approval of minutes and claims. New business. So one of the items in the budget was to have a street CIP. So my intention is to bring a request for a proposal RFP so we can get that process started. That process, you're going to want to field the RFP, get it out there, 3 to 4 weeks for responses from engineering firms. Then you got to bring them in, enough time to review them, and then bring a recommendation to the council. So we probably wouldn't be, the reason we want to get that going now is because to go through the process and be able to come to council with, here's the proposals, we've analyzed them, this is what we're recommending. If we issue it in March, it'll come back to council in May. So that's kind of to really make sure we get good responses and can critically analyze them. That's kind of what we're looking at. So then in May, mid-May, they can hit the ground running on that process so they can be done hopefully mid to late summer. Police side-by-side purchase, that's something was also, had been previously discussed. Chief Sendell has a quote looking to purchase that. They did go for a grant from, was it Firehouse Subs, Chief? Was that the entity? Sorry.
That is correct. And then we also looked into Polaris's government. They actually have a government site, so you can buy it fully equipped with lights and stickers and all the stuff, but it's substantially more money than building it ourselves, so we're in the process of getting quotes for all the Stokes basket, which is rescue basket, lighting, graphics, and building it ourselves will save quite a bit of money.
And unfortunately, we were not successful in the grant.
No.
So we do have, as part of the legislative session, one of the bills coming out of last year's legislative session was public safety funding. So the city got about $116,000 for public safety. And so we're going to be recommending using money from that bucket for the purchase of the side-by-side. And then the Pequot Lakes Fire District Joint Powers Agreement Amendment. So that is, the fire district has an amendment to just clarify the formula for doing the pricing, so how that's determined. Per the Joint Powers Agreement, anytime there's an amendment to the agreement, it has to go to both city councils for approval prior to that. So that's what that is. And then old business, we should be back hopefully with a recommendation on, if you remember, I think it was back in January, we talked about Terminal Road and Red Oak Lane, an opportunity to potentially do a sewer extension along County Road 11 from Airport up to Red Oak Lane, and then with the ability of then hopefully going down those two roads, serving those lots. We should have a proposal, right, Joe? To have further consideration on whether or not to do that. We're going to want to have that, kind of make that decision sooner rather than later, so we can make sure we line that project up for the summer, and then also work with Mr. Wiebolt on his development. So if we do go through that, he can make sure that he can tie in while he's doing his development this summer there on Terminal Road. That's what we have so far. Again, there may be other things that pop up that we want addressed. If there's something that pops up, it's probably going to be on the smaller end of things, but this is what we know of as of, like I said, nothing has changed since the packet was sent out last week. So this is what we know as of now. So if there's any questions, amendments you'd like to see to the agenda,
I just had a question. I don't know if it's an agenda item. Is it still looking like May for the yay or nay on the LRIP for Bushman, the grant?
I haven't heard from WSB that it's probably, MnDOT says April, late March, early April. Their track record has suggested late April, early May. So hopefully we'll know by the April council meeting. If not, it'll probably be May council meeting, hopefully.
And as far as the grant for the trail, I forget, was that like June or what?
So a little update on that. As part of the process, so there's kind of a process with that. One of the steps that MnDOT likes to see, so they have, as was presented at your workshop back in November, there's a regional group that for this region or district approves those TA grant requests. What they request is that all the TACs, the Transportation Advisory Councils within their region, take any proposals within the region and rank them. So the Region 5 TAC did that 2 weeks ago. It'll be 2 weeks ago tomorrow. They had there's three proposals, and one from Brainerd, one from Baxter, and then Breezy Point. And I believe their ranking went Baxter, Brainerd, Breezy Point. So they ranked us as number 3. That doesn't mean we won't get funding, but then the ATP, I believe is the group is called. I think they meet in March or April, so we should know April probably again-ish on whether or not we're getting any TA funding for that project.
Does that get impacted? Because Pequot, they never Did they apply for a grant as well?
No. So, yeah, so only though, we were, the only three entities that applied for the TA funding this year were Brainerd, Baxter, and Breezy Point.
And we're scored lower because our trail wouldn't connect another trail. So anytime that you're starting something, you are going to go up against a harder time getting a grant because it's weighted differently.
Yeah, so
That
Baxter.
doesn't mean we
yeah,
won't get it. It just means that in that specific, like, weighted,
Yeah.
it just weighted
Baxter's
differently.
project was connecting two sections of trail, and Brainerd's project was for the, to go towards their pedestrian overpass on 210 that they're looking to construct between Lum Park and the, pretty much the north and south sides of 210 over by Lum Park, and then that would, part of that would be connecting the Cuyuna Lake State Trail and other trail systems, so.
And they did say you may have to submit it more than once
Yeah.
in 1 year in order to get the actual grant.
Yep.
Correct.
Yep, it's a process. I know when I was in Brainerd, there were times that they applied 3-4 years before they were finally approved. So.
And there's equity, so
Yeah.
you can only get so much in your county.
Yeah, so that's an update on that process. Thank you for reminding me. Any other questions about the agenda? Okay, well, that is all we have for this evening. Thank you very much.